From MNTech, the Micro Nano Technology Education Center, this is Talking Technicians, the podcast about technicians, who they are, what they do, and where they come from. I'm your host, Peter Kazarnoff. I teach technicians and engineers at Portland Community College. In each episode, you'll meet a working technician and hear their story. That means real interviews with real technicians about real jobs. At the end of each episode, you'll hear actions you can take if you want to be a technician too. In this episode, you'll meet Matt. Matt is a senior research technician at the University of Kentucky in Lexington, Kentucky. Matt, welcome to Talking Technicians.
Thanks, Peter. I'm glad to be here.
Matt, you work at the University of Kentucky. Do you also live in Lexington?
So I live nearby. It's about an hour drive. I live in Danville, Kentucky. Moved there last summer.
And so you haven't been in Danville so long. You just moved there in the summer. Have you been in Kentucky for a while?
So I actually grew up in Kentucky. And after graduating, I moved out to Washington State for some better career opportunities in the additive manufacturing sector. And then just recently moved back to be closer to my family.
Great. So Matt, let's talk a little bit about where you work. Can you describe where you work at the University of Kentucky, and how would you describe your job title?
Yeah, so I work at the University of Kentucky, specifically for the Institute of Sustainable Manufacturing. So we're researching different ways to increase sustainability in manufacturing, as well as make it more versatile. We have a couple grants through the Army, and so we work closely with them to try and find new technologies to bring to not only the battlefield, but also to different countries around the world that might be needing aid as well.
So Matt, what are some things you do day to day at work then?
So I'm I'm kind of over the additive machines in our research lab. So I operate a friction stir weld additive machine, as well as a laser powder bed additive printing machine. And then I also just help out students for the most part. So students will come in with a project, and I will kind of help them out when they need something cut up or printed, as well as just general advice on whether something is feasible for machining and manufacturing.
Matt, can you provide a general ballpark salary for a job working as a senior technician in a research institution like this?
Yeah, the ballpark is somewhere between 50 and 60,000 a year, so it's pretty good salary, especially for this area.
So Matt, you also mentioned that you worked in additive manufacturing in Washington State. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did in Washington?
Yeah, so in Washington, I was an additive manufacturing machine technician. I worked for Blue Origin, the rocket company. And so there we were printing rocket parts for our engines. And I was a team lead, so I led a team of about 5 people, and we worked with a lot of laser powder bed machines, various materials and sizes.
And Matt, what did it feel like your first day of work going into that company in Washington State? That sounds pretty advanced.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was definitely very new experience for me. There's a lot higher security than your typical cashier or a lot of manufacturing jobs. So it was definitely kind of scary to get into. But after I met the people I would be working with, I realized they're all just people, very relatable, and everybody there was very nice and understanding.
And what did it feel like your first day working at the University of Kentucky in the additive manufacturing lab?
It was definitely a lot different pace. Research I've found is a little bit slower moving. There's not as many, rate deadlines. So it was very laid back, kind of just toured the place, got introduced to everybody. Yeah, it was a really easy first day.
That's good to hear. So, Matt, did you do anything in between working in Washington and then going back to Kentucky?
So I moved back to Kentucky and I wasn't working at the college yet. So I actually was working with a friend of mine doing some concrete 3D printing, trying to get that set up and going down here. It's the first concrete printer in Kentucky, actually.
Wow. So you've got quite a bit of 3D printing or additive manufacturing experience. So let's back up a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about your education experience? For instance, what did you do after you were in high school?
So after high school, I started attending Somerset Community College. It's a technical college here in Kentucky. And originally I started in as a welding major, but then I moved to CNC machining and traditional machining because it interested me a little bit more. And while I was in that major was when I actually found 3D printing classes at the college. So that kind of got me started taking those. And then while I was working towards my associates, I was able to get my certificate as a 3D printer technician.
And Matt, was that certificate and that work at community college useful when you went out to Washington to work in additive manufacturing?
Oh, yeah, that was a big help. It kind of gave me a leg up in the hiring process because they knew I understood printers. And even if I hadn't worked with the specific printers they had, they knew that I understood the process. I also really enjoyed the program they had at Somerset. It was very multi-scoped. So they went over a lot of how to, if you wanted to run your own business doing 3D printing from your home, but then also scaled it up to how to make parts specifically for 3D printing and how to maintenance printers as well.
Matt, what was the toughest part of school for you? You mentioned that you first worked in welding and then CNC machining and then on to 3D printing. What was hard about community college?
For me personally, I was homeschooled, so going from the laid back style of homeschooling into a classroom format was actually probably where I struggled the most, just keeping my attention focused for a set 2 hour class.
And Matt, how did community college prepare you for where you are now? You mentioned that there were a lot of different aspects to that 3D printing certificate, things like business as well as technical skills. What are some of the things that you use now that you learned in community college?
I feel like I learned a lot of my problem solving at community college, just trying to think of different ways to find a solution. So my teacher would give us a project to solve a problem, and then he would have us make a part or design something to solve that problem, and then kind of help walk us through some of the drawbacks of what we came up with, or help us modify things. So yeah, he was a big help with my problem solving, and that has been very useful in my professional career.
So it sounds like you do some problem-solving work now. Besides those sorts of technical skills, are there any interpersonal skills that are important? Some people call these soft skills or professional skills. Do you use those in your work?
Oh yeah. So interpersonal skills are very important. I've come to find out. Originally, I didn't really think that before I got into the field, and I think they're very important in just about every job. Yeah, I would say you need to be able to communicate your needs and capabilities to your teammates, and also be able to tell them when something is not feasible, such as a deadline, so that you can work to address that before it becomes an issue.
Matt, what's something unexpected about working as a technician that you only learned after you started? What was something unexpected about working that first job in Washington?
I think something unexpected is just how many different walks of life you see as a technician. So I worked with some people that had used to work at a warehouse. I worked with a guy that had worked at a port. Worked with a guy that did construction before that. So there's a lot of different walks of life that you see as a technician, and it really draws in a lot of different people.
Matt, how did your life change when you became a technician? What's different now, and what was different in Washington before when you were a student?
I definitely feel like whenever I'm working, I have a purpose. I have something to focus on and kind of challenge me, and I think that helps me become the best version of myself, and really strive to do better and learn more about the machines and ecosystems that kind of make up the industrial world.
Matt, what's something at work that gets you really excited when you think about like going in for the day? What are you most excited about?
I'm really excited whenever there's a new project coming in, because that means there's going to be a lot of new problems, a lot of new things to figure out, like what kind of material we're using and how this will react and how are we going to be able to machine this. So that gets me fired up. I like to see it as a challenge and try and strive to meet that challenge.
Matt, what advice would you give current students or people who want to transition their careers and work in your industry and work as a technician like you?
Don't be scared to apply yourself. There's a lot of technician jobs that there isn't really any formal training for, and you just have to take the skills that you've already learned and show them that you can apply those skills to the new field. And I think being willing to learn new skills is a must for a technician.
Matt, to finish up, do you have a final call to action for students or people who want to transition their careers and work in additive manufacturing like you? Do you feel like additive manufacturing is growing right now?
Oh yeah, so additive manufacturing has really been taken off in the last couple of years. And a big problem with the industry is there's not very many trained technicians. So we really need more additive manufacturing technicians in the field. And it's a great way to get in on the ground level, get some good experience, and within a couple of years, you'll be set for life making good money. So yeah, just I would say just try and pursue it. Don't be afraid if you don't have some crazy qualification. Just show them you're willing to learn and apply yourself.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for sharing your story with me and talking with me about both your community college experience and your industry experience working as a technician.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Please keep in touch.
Will do. Thank you.
Talking Technicians is produced by MNTech, the Micro Nano Technology Education Center, through financial support from the National Science Foundation's Advanced Technological Education Grant Program. Opinions expressed on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the National Science Foundation. Join the conversation. If you are a working technician or know someone who is, reach out to us at info@talkingtechnicians.org. We're always looking out for great guests to share more stories with you.